Sure. Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome students and teachers. For those of you that have not had a chance to meet me yet, my name is Angela and I'm a specialist with Region 1 Gear Up, and one of my responsibilities here with Region 1 Gear Up is to facilitate your efforts in college essay writing. So we're happy today to welcome back Janine Robinson, our expert college essay writing consultant. Students, I know that some of you may be just starting your essays, but the majority of you probably have at least a draft written and you're in the editing process. I know some of our colleges have deadlines of December 1st to get those admissions packets in, and so many of you, it's crunch time to get those essays ready. So whether you've just begun or you're putting the finishing touches, we're going to have some very valuable information for you today so that your essay will stand out, be memorable, and hopefully it will seal the deal to get you into the college of your dreams. So welcome, Janine. I'm going to turn it over to you. And those of you that are listening in, this whole presentation is for you. So as you think of questions, please don't be shy. Please approach the computer that you're participating with. Use the chat feature, speak into the microphone. Please ask any questions you have. I'll keep my eye on the little chat button to see if any questions pop up, and I'll be sure that Janine notices that. Or once again, just speak into the microphone, unmute your laptop or your desktop computer. We would love to hear you. This is all for you. So Janine, welcome and take it away.
Well, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. I've had the privilege of working with students, the Gear Up students, for the last 2 years. And I know a lot of those students have already sent in their applications or are poised to do that. No matter where you are in the process, it's never too late. My thinking is these essays don't have to take a week or months, that if you just focus, get some ideas, give yourself an hour or two, you can write a great essay. So even though the deadlines are nearing, the Applied Texas, my understanding is December 1st for a lot of the schools. That is in, just a handful of days. Don't despair. You can still learn how to write these and crank one out and be in the running. So if you haven't seen me or met me before, my name's Janine Robinson. I live in Southern California, and my background is journalism. I was a newspaper reporter. I also then went into magazines, writing and editing. I also became a certified high school English teacher, and then my own daughter, who's now 25, was the same place you are. She needed to write her college application essays. She came to me, had no idea how to do it. We did some research. We started to appreciate that these essays are different from the essays that you write in your English classes. They're not academic, more formal essays. They're personal essays. They're about you. They're also, when a personal essay is then used as part of a college application, it's then called a personal statement. If it's an essay that's about you and meant to showcase something about you that sets you apart, that differentiates you from other students, applicants, they call them personal statements. And there's all different varieties depending on the prompts or the questions that the different schools use to try to help you frame your personal essays for these applications. But you have to remember, the bottom line is they're just not trying to torture you with these. They're trying to help you write an essay so that they can get a sense of who you are. We talk about how they see your test scores, your grades, but there's no face. And this is your chance to showcase a little bit of your personality, your quirks, your passions, your goals, but also your character, which is what you believe in, how you think, what you care deeply about, how you learn. Basically, you're fortunate that Gear Up invested in an online boot camp, a writing camp that I put together with the idea that a student could come to this, spend an hour, read some of the information, and watch these short videos, go through 10 steps, and after that, have a pretty good idea what these are all about, what your goal is with writing them, and a lot of tips on how to brainstorm ideas, how to focus your idea, how to make them engaging, how to structure them, all sorts of stuff. So the beauty is that you all have access to this boot camp. I'm going to share it with you so you can see what I'm talking about. But you have to go through your Gear Up website, right, Angela? Can you see the boot camp, the front page?
Yes, we can see it. And so students, Janine's showing you the boot camp that she's created especially for you. And I want to make sure that every student that's tuning in right now knows that you have access to this information at all times. It's really important for you to know, students, that if you if you're working on your essays, and let's say this is really a good time to mention this because Thanksgiving's coming up, and I know a lot of schools have the whole week off, and many students will be finishing their essays during the Thanksgiving break. So let's say you're home and you want to you just need to, you have some questions or you need some inspiration. This course is available to you 24/7 through your myregion1.org account. And the way, students, that you get to your account is you go to the website myregion1.org. Janine's typing that in right now for you. And what you do next, after you go to the website, you'll enter in your unique username and password. And your username, students, begins with the letters G, U, and then that's followed by your 9-digit Gear Up ID number. If you do not know your Gear Up ID number, please see your facilitator. You want to keep that in a safe place. We have lots of stuff for you. The password is the Gear Up ID number all by itself, the 9-digit Gear Up ID number all by itself. And that's how you log into your myregion1.org account. Now, once you're logged in, there's all kinds of stuff to help you navigate your pathway to college. But what we're going to do today is talk about the essay course. If you look under school announcements, there's an announcement that says, access Janine Robinson's essay boot camp at the following link. And you click the link. That's it. Simple as pie. You click the link. If you're prompted for a password, then type in Gear Up using all capital letters, all one word, GEARUP. All capital letters, all one word, and that will get you into the course. And you'll know you're in the right place if you see the flaming light bulb with a pencil inside. You'll see the course. Once again, this course has lessons, videos, sample essays, handouts, tips from Janine. She's going to kind of walk you through some of the highlights right now.
All right, so let's say you're at home, whether you're just starting on some of the essays or you already have drafts, this can help you. There's a lot on how to edit your draft, which means basically you've written it out, but now you need to go back and improve it. And I always tell students, you've heard about the writing process. That's what it is. No writer, whether it's a famous writer or somebody that does it for a living with magazines, nobody just writes one perfect sentence after another and then they add up and they have a perfect piece. You write it out, you get your ideas out, and it's raw, it's rough, it's imperfect, and that's good. It's fine. You have your draft out, something to work with. Then you step away for a few minutes, for an hour, a couple days. You come back to it. You read it out loud, and then you find ways to improve it. And you go back and forth. That's called editing. And that's what you need to do with these essays. Same drill. So what I want to show you is there's a number of tools here to help you edit, whether you have a draft or even if you're trying to brainstorm topics, no matter where you are in the process. If you happen to have an hour and you want to learn more than you ever wanted to know and become an expert essay writer, you can go through all 10 steps of this course. Takes about an hour. How you do it, you go to the course, enter that Gear Up password, start over here at home. Click home. There's a little bit of information, background information about some of the common prompts, scholarships, handouts. Read that, tells you what to expect in the course, and then it says next. And so you just click, and that's how you do it. You click through the course step by step. This takes you to the introduction, talks about some tips on writing essays, and here's one of those little videos. There's 10 videos. None of them are more than 5 minutes long, super short. And this one, you in 5 minutes, you will know exactly what you need to make a good essay. You'll learn it needs to be personal, it needs to be engaging at the beginning, it needs to have meaning, all these great things. So then you can go on next, step 1, ready to go. This is all about finding your defining qualities, which is a wonderful way to focus your essay. Are you going to showcase that you're competitive, that you have integrity? What core value are you showcasing about yourself in your essay? Again, watch the videos. Step 2 talks about how to find real life moments, your stories from your life that you can use in your essays so they're not bland and boring and predictable and dull. Real life stories, those moments when things happen, they're so interesting. Those will boost your essay, out of the ballpark. Believe me, most students write similar essays and they overlook that their personal stories are the key to showing who you are, how you think, and how you learn. So anyway, you can go on and on. Step 3, I think, is about how to find topics. It takes you all the way through. Map out how to structure your essay. Maybe you have a good idea, but how do I put it together? This talks about that. Each of these steps, you can watch the video. It also has related handouts. So the one about how to map out your essay has a related handout, which is a sample outline that you can use and follow and give your essay some structure. There's sample essays, which if you're sort of stuck, I can't think of any good ideas. What are these essays? Read some of these sample essays. In 5 minutes, it will open your thinking to the different types of topics students write about and also the style. These essays basically are written in what's called a narrative style. It's where you take a personal experience and you can relay that experience, and then you talk about, explain what it meant to you. They're called narrative style essays. And these essays in general, some of the rules of the road are write in the first person, use I, me, us, we, stick to the past tense, use everyday language. Don't try to sound smart, don't try to be impressive, try to write and use the language that you use more in everyday life. Don't try to weave in those SAT words. It doesn't work. These are a more casual style of writing. It's different. You can use all the same rules of English, mechanics, spelling, punctuation, grammar, but it's the style that's different. And again, reading sample essays, you can get a sense of that if you read some sample essays. So anyway, this takes you all the way through to then how to bump up an essay, which is great. I would go right there if I had a draft and I want to make it better. There's a little video and related handouts, more reading tips. Maybe you don't have a conclusion yet. There's that step 9. Or how to edit your essay. This has a whole checklist where you can take what you've written and question by question. Did you do this? Did you do that? And you can really go through and with specific ways to improve your essay. So those are some of the ways that no matter where you're at, you can either go through this whole course and become an essay writing expert in an hour, which is, I would highly recommend it, because this is not just essay writing, this is all good writing that when you get into college will help you as well. If you don't have time for that, I know most of you are swamped, get what you need. Go through here and see, depending where you're at in the essay writing process. If you're writing supplemental essays, if you're still working on a common application essay, it's all here. So over here in resources, this I think is probably going to apply to most of you who are using Apply Texas, that application that you need to use if you're applying to almost any public Texas university or college. Those deadlines, for the most part, are coming up December 1st, I believe. My advice, Angela's advice, get your applications in. Do not wait until the last minute. A lot of times the whole system will jam up if everybody pushes send at the same time. You don't want to be messed up. You know, get it in as soon as you can in advance. So the Apply Texas Essays, there's 3 different prompts. You can go to this. Here's the tabs. There's resources. If you hover over resources, there's a drop down, the top one, Help for Apply Texas Essays. This is your ticket. I wrote this just for Texas students. It has the 3 prompts and then a little, some instructions and tips for each of those topics. So I'm going to go through those really quickly. And then I'm going to go and review some of the sample essays that Angela sent me that you sent through your teachers. And hopefully I can give you some tips from those. Okay. So starting with topic A, this is probably the most important one, I think, because this is your chance to write something very personal about yourself. It asks, what was the environment in which you were raised? I use the word background, or what's my world like, instead of environment, if it helps you understand what they're asking about. Where do you come from? What's your life about? What's your background? So they want to know about that. Describe your family, home, neighborhood, or community. Pick one to give it a focus. I also like to inject the idea of culture. So you could write about your culture, because that definitely will shape your background, if it has, as a possible topic to write about. Family, home, neighborhood, community, culture. And then this is the second part of this prompt. You probably learned that when you look at essay prompts, you need to see what they want from you. And oftentimes there's more than one question in the prompt. So if there's more than one question, you have to make sure you answer both of those. In this one, describe that background, but also explain how it has shaped you as a person. That's huge. Half of your essay or more should be about that part, answering that question. If you have a draft, I would suggest that you read through your draft and say, is half of this explaining how it shaped me as a person? Does half of this talk about what I learned, how I think, how I've changed a little bit, what I care about? If you don't have that in there, and all you have in your essay so far is describing your family or your neighborhood or the issues that you faced, that's not enough. You need to then condense that, trim it, shorten it, and allow room to say, what does that mean? I told you about my family, I told you about these issues, but you need to say how you deal with them, what you've learned, why they matters, what you believe in. This is where how this has affected you, how your family has affected you, has shaped who you are. So say you're sitting there and you're like, okay, I need a topic. What do I write about? One of the things when you write about your background, if you're describing, say you want to write about your family, you can describe, my mom does this for a living, my dad does that, I have sisters and brothers, we have 5 cats, we live in a little town. That's good, and that belongs in the essay, but that's the background. To write an essay, you need to make it mostly about you. So how do you do that? The trick is to think of some issue within your family that you dealt with. And to find an issue is to think of some sort of problem. Doesn't mean that your whole essay is going to be a downer or negative, but the reason that you look for a problem is that then you will inject some interest into your essay. Instead of just describing your brothers and sisters in your house, if you think of a problem, something that you've dealt with, it'll have a lot more interest. You want to read about it. Something happened. So that's when you're brainstorming about writing about this topic. Think of some sort of problem related to whatever background you're writing about. If you're writing about your neighborhood, Think about a problem in your neighborhood. Start by sharing what happened. And then you can go into how you dealt with it, how you thought about it, how it made you feel. And then you can shift into how it shaped you, right? Looking back, how did it affect you? What did you learn from dealing with that problem? Boom, you have a great essay. So the idea is that the two things I would say to really make sure that you have in your topic A essay is, one, is it interesting at the beginning? If you just start explaining about your family, that's not that interesting. See if you could find something that happened to start your essay with. How do you find something that happened? Think about a time something went a little wrong. Financial hardship, your dad lost his job, your mom might get deported, your sister has trouble with drug addiction, or your younger brother has ADHD. There's all sorts of problems out there. These colleges are not expecting you to write essays about how perfect your family is, or your community, or your home, because that's not the real world. They want to know what you've had to deal with in your life. And the reason they want to know that is because then you can show them how you handle things and how you learn and what you care about. So I know the temptation is to want to put a positive spin on everything, but that's not the real world. And this is your chance. If you have a hardship, share that, because then you can go into putting a positive spin on whatever the issue is that you've had to deal with. Yes, it can be ugly and hard and make you miserable at times, and you can share that in your essay, but then you quickly shift into, but this is how I've dealt with it. This is where I got inspiration for dealing with it, even though sometimes the world looked pretty dark. These are the steps I took to make sure that I continued with my studies, that I continued to pursue my goals despite whatever the hardship or obstacle was. And then, remember the second half of the essay, how it shaped you? Then you can look back and say, oh, now I realize in dealing with that issue, it's changed me a little bit. It's made me stronger in this way or that way. It inspired me maybe to go into a certain field of study. It affected me, how? And that's the second part. You need to have at least half of that essay talk about how it shaped you. So that's topic A. And if you do have an idea and you don't know how to structure it, I have a little sample outline here where you can pretty much write one paragraph for each number, and you'll have a rough draft. Number 1, share a moment, incident, or time from your background when something happened. Something related. Look for a problem. Number 2, then write the backstory. That's when you can talk about where the little town you're from and your nature of your family and what led up to this thing that happened. I call it the backstory or the context, so we get the bigger picture. And then you can go into, so this terrible thing happened, or this problem, or a setback, or a mistake, or an argument, or a conflict. Those are all problems. Just pick one. Then you can talk about how you thought of, how did it make you feel? Share that. This issue made me so depressed. There were times I didn't want to get out of bed. It's okay. Share how you felt. Then you need to talk about how you got out of bed and you turned it around. I was depressed for 2 months, but there's a point where I decided I had to deal with this. And then say what you did. You don't have to have solved it. Your life doesn't have to suddenly be all perfect. So talk about how you dealt with it. And then number 3, there's your meat. This is the most important thing. Share what you learned from handling the problem. And if you want a little way to launch into that second part of how it shaped you, a good 2 words are, looking back, that helps you sort of take this different point of view. now that I look back and reflect on all that went down and how I dealt with it, I now see that I think differently about this, or I feel differently, or I've changed a little bit, or now I believe this instead of that. I also learned this and that. You know, I learned about myself, I learned something about others, maybe I learned something about just how the world is in general. And then in conclusion, there's some tips there about how to conclude it, how to kind of link back to whatever you started with, give it a status update, talk about how you intend to use whatever you learned out toward your future goals. So that is A. And then B, even though it's a very different prompt, it's asking you to write about a different topic, you can still use the same approach to make sure your essay is interesting and not too general and boring, and also has meaning. So this, instead of asking about your background, they're saying pick one thing about your identity, or pick some interest that you have, or pick a talent, something you're good at. I'm the world's best yo-yo player, yo-yo whatever, or I'm into magic tricks, or I'm a video game expert, or I'm a piano player, or I'm good at roping horses in the rodeo. Pick a talent. To write about that, however, you don't want to just say, you know, I grew up on a ranch around horses and my dad taught me how to rope bulls and I find it really hard and interesting. That's all good and you'll use that in your essay. But to really make it stand out and make it really interesting and grab that reader at the beginning, think of a time something happened. And I know if you're roping cattle, that's exciting stuff. Something, I bet things go wrong. You know, that cow rolled on your foot, or, you know, whatever. Look for problems when something went wrong, because that's when something happened. It's exciting. So start with a little moment of something happening related to whatever talent you're writing about, related to, or if you picked an interest, think of the interest. I'm really interested. I love chess. I'm passionate about chess. You want to write about it? Think of a time something happened, a little problem. Maybe you're in a big chess match and something went wrong. You know, maybe you realized you made the wrong move and you're in checkmate or whatever. Start with something that happened. Look for a problem, and you'll have something that happened. And then you go back, and then you give the story about what first interested you in chess, how you learned, how you got better. And then you can go into, why does it matter that you're interested, that you're good at chess? That's where you can go deeper with this essay, talking about what did you learn about chess, maybe beyond chess. What did you learn about yourself? Maybe it's, I'm a really strategic person, strategic thinker. I'm really logical. What did you, if you write about your talent about roping calves or cows, what about that talent? Why does it matter? What did you learn beyond just that specific skill about yourself? So again, there's more here.
The lady that you're best friends with?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Yeah.
Hold on, Janine. Let me mute our incoming arrivals here.
Okay.
Okay. There we go. Okay.
Okay. You're free.
I think we have a class joining us, and so I have to mute them while they're coming in and getting settled in. So, Miss Adeda's class, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, welcome. What I've been talking about are the Apply Texas essays. I just went over topic A about writing about your background, and just sort of talked about how if you're writing about your background, you need to make sure that you also answer the second part where it talks about how it shaped you. And I talked about if you write about your background, explain and describe your background, your family or your community or neighborhood, whatever you choose to write about. But to make it interesting, think about something that happened related to it. Think of a little time or moment or interaction or something that happened that you can start your essay with. It'll make it a lot more interesting. And I'm going to go and show some sample essays that you guys have written or are working on that will illustrate this point of trying to make if you want to make your essay better, a lot of times think of a way to start with something more specific. Instead of just talking about how your family has interesting traditions and that you love these holidays and traditions of your family, pick one moment when you're celebrating some specific tradition. Like if it's the holidays before Christmas, maybe you have the tradition of making tamales with your grandmother. Start by writing about that moment, a moment, and not even just saying, I make tamales with my grandmother. Maybe talk about something that happened, you know. Maybe I spilled the whole batch on the floor. Look for something that happened. It's more specific. Think about what you're writing about. So, and that applies as well. Now I'm talking about the second topic, topic B, which a lot of you have to write essays about. It says write about identity, interest, or talent. My 2 cents is you don't write about all of them, you pick one. Okay, I'm going to write about a talent. What talent? I play the piano. I'm good at roping cattle. I'm good at computer programming. Pick your talent. Now you need to focus it more. How do I write about that? The best way is to think about a time something happened related to that talent. And to find something that happened, the big magic key is to look for a time something went sideways, a problem related to it. Then you'll have a little story. So if you're going to write about a talent, you want to write about playing the piano, think of a time that maybe you were in a recital and you flubbed up. Start with that little moment. Way more interesting than if you just start, I grew up playing, my mom made me take lessons, I got good, I was in recitals. That's the background. Think about something that happened. Start your essay with an example of something specific that happened related to whatever talent you're writing about, or an interest, or your identity, something about your identity. And then you can go on to how you dealt with that problem. You give the background of whatever you're writing about, and then why it matters, and what you learned about yourself related to that talent or interest, and how you're going to use that in the future. So all that's, we talked about, for those of you just joining us, Angela talked about that you can go and use this online boot camp. Your teacher can tell you how to access it, but all the information's here. So maybe you still have work to do on your essays. Thanksgiving, holidays coming up, you should have a little moment of time. Go to your Gear Up website, ask your teacher how to get on this boot camp. It's for you to use. You can use it anytime if you have internet. Here's all the tabs. You're doing Apply Texas. You want to know what I'm talking about? The Resources tab. Under the Resources tab, the first thing, Help for Applied Texas Essays. That's what I'm reading from. It has the prompts, and for each prompt, it has tips, ideas, and little outlines on how to write about each of these. So I've talked about A and B. C is one that a lot of you, they might say it's optional, but I would, if any essay that's optional, I would go ahead and write it. Why not? It's an opportunity to share more about yourself. And Angela said a lot of times topic C is actually used to decide scholarships.
Yes.
So yes, write it. Right, Angela?
That's right. That's right. And one thing, this is a great time to interject. Students, before you write a single essay, make a list of colleges you want to apply to and go to their website and find out what their requirements are. Every single school has different requirements with essays. So what you want to do, you've done lots of research over the last several years as you've been part of Gear Up. Most of you have a list of schools that you're applying to. Write that list of schools down. Go to every single one of their websites and click on admissions. After you click on admissions, look at where it says freshman admissions, and they'll tell you exactly which essays they want. Sometimes they want all three. Sometimes they want only certain ones. I know some of the universities use certain ones for scholarship purposes. Educate yourself with the schools you're applying to, what they're looking for, so that you can spend the time on the essays that they want to see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, so topic C. Topic C is kind of, I think of as a more fun essay, because listen to the prompt. You've got a ticket in your hand. Where will you go? What will you do? What will happen when you get there? It's out of the box. It's different. It's not your same old, write about a talent or yourself, which are the standards. This is, because it's creative, it's allowing you or encouraging you to write a more creative essay. Use your imagination. So the first thing, since it's a ticket in your hand, the idea is you're going somewhere. So my thinking would be, first, think of your mode of transportation and think out of the box. It could be a helium balloon. It could be the bullet train. It could be a unicycle. It could be, anything that gets you from point A to point B. You could also go think about maybe something going into the future. It could be going to the past. So think about where you want to go, and then notice that it says what will happen when you get there. The reason they're asking you that, if you remember, when I'm talking about that magic potion of using a problem in your essay, especially at the beginning, think of something that went sideways or wrong, or an obstacle or a challenge, mistake. If you include a problem, and you say what happened, it's something that happened. So it's hard for me to explain it, but what will happen when you get there? Well, it's sort of like, well, what problems, is going to happen? What's going to kind of go wrong? That's when things happen, or when there's problems, just how it is. So think about something that, if you want to think about something that happened and they want you to include that in this little story, right? Think of something that kind of goes sideways. Maybe you landed in the wrong place. Maybe you crash. Maybe you meet somebody who's a threat to you. Maybe you messed up and you're not where you thought you were going to be. There's all sorts of ways to include something happening. The trick is to include a problem. You, with your ticket in your hand, on your way in some form of transportation, and when you get there, something happens, not good. The beauty of that is you can start your essay either with the not good thing happening, and then back up and explain how you got there and why, the background. Or you could just do chronological, you got on the train and then the bad thing happened. But the point of having this story of something happening is that, again, it goes back to, you share what happened. There was a challenge, there was an obstacle, there was a setback, something happened. You share what happened, it's going to be kind of interesting. Then you can say what you did to deal with it. And there you're set up for the more important part is, in dealing with the problem, what did you learn in the process? That should be half of your essay. Again, that's the meat, the depth, the part that you can showcase how you think, how you feel, what you believe, what inspires you, how you learn, what your values are, how you feel. That's all the juicy stuff that colleges want to see. Think about why do they make you write these essays anyway? It's not just to torture you. It's they want to get a sense of how you think, what you care about, how you feel, how you learn. And so these are just little ways to give you ideas of a way to write about something and that allows you to share this stuff. And one of the best ways is to somehow include a problem. And then you're just, all the next steps are so natural, saying how you dealt with something and what you learned and why it mattered, that you get to share the stuff that the colleges need to know about you in order to go, oh, I read this essay. From this essay, this kid, this thing happened to them. But what I'm learning about this kid is that student is very determined. is passionate about this or that, is a good learner, thinks about things, feels things deeply, has values, yes, that student will be good at our university, because those are the kinds of students that we look for. So another tip with all of these is that if you're a student that happens to know what you want to study in college, they call that your field of study. Oh, I know I want to be a doctor. I want to be a chemical engineer. I want to be a computer scientist. If you happen to know that, and I'll tell you, most students have no clue, and that's fine. But if you do have an idea at this point, colleges seem to like to know that. So if in one of these essays you can kind of link your topic to your field of interest, go for it. Say topic C is a really kind of a natural one to try to, if you have a ticket, if you're going somewhere, maybe say you want to be, I used this before, you're interested in biology, or you want to be a scientist. Maybe, your ticket is to go to the Galapagos Islands, because that's where, Charles Darwin, learned about evolution and got a lot of his ideas. And then you can talk about how that inspired your interest in biology. So it's just an opportunity. You don't have to do that. But if it works out, same with when you're writing about your background. Maybe something happened in your background, maybe there was some real dire sort of illness or something that really defined you because you had to deal with it growing up yourself, or a loved one. And in dealing with that, you realize that you really are a natural caretaker, that you're a nurturing person, and that it sparked your interest in nursing. So look for that opportunity. You don't have to do it. It's just, it is something that colleges seem to like and value. So I'm trying to think if there are any other tips. Of course, you want them to be about different topics. You don't want crossover, So what I'm going to do now is go and share some of the, and this is where it always takes me a minute because of my technical abilities. Some sample essays that you shared.
Right, and so students, basically as Janine's pulling up her screen, over the last year and a half as Janine's been working with us, various students have been gracious enough to submit their essay drafts, and then Janine has been able to model how she looks at the drafts, and then how she kind of goes through a thinking process, and sort of like a little mental checklist of things she's looking for, and how to take that essay up to the next level to make it really stand out, make it different from the rest. So we're going to be looking at some essays now that students may have submitted last year or earlier in the year this year. You may see your own, you never know. We have removed the names and anything that's incredibly identifying. So pretty much these are will be anonymous. Can
you see it right now?
Not yet. No.
Oh, you can't?
No, not yet.
I thought this showed. Okay. I'm going to have to share the screen. Hang on a second.
So students, while Janine's pulling up her screen, get something ready so that you can make some notes. I know one of the things I personally have learned the most from is watching and listening to her thinking process as she goes through a draft. Your essay may have some features in common with the essays that she's getting ready to go through. Make some little notes for yourself, because perhaps the pointers she's getting ready to give will apply to your essay and you don't want to forget them. So yes, we can see the screen now, Janine. It's
okay, good. Okay. Yeah, totally think about what you've written, and so that any of these ideas that you might be able to use to bump yours up as well. So I read about 20 essays, and the pattern I saw was a lot of them were too general. And basically, I think most of these were addressing the topic A about writing about background. And what the students did was they talked describing and their family, describing the family members, what they did, their home. I really love my family. My house is, comfortable. It's my refuge. That's all good stuff, and it can still belong in your essay, but it's very general. And what I look at when I read that is that a lot of these descriptive general essays could be written by a lot of different students. They don't let me see you. Your essay you should be able to read your essay and it could only belong to you because it's so personal. So that was sort of the main pitfall that I saw. Here's just an example, and it's not to single anybody out. And again, what you've written to flesh out these details about your background are good, and you can still use that in your essay. But this is where the editing comes in. You want to bump those up. You want to get something more specific, something that happened, and put that at the beginning. So here's one. I was born on February 6, 1999 in McAllen, Texas. All my life I've lived in Donna. All my years being a student, I spent them in the Donna district. In my family, there's 5 of us, father, mother, 2 older sisters. See how it's just describing details about the family? To me, that's not that interesting. Why? Because it's so general. So I read the essay, talked about, again, homes where I love to be, my family, my parents raised me well. It's all positive, and that's really good. But again, a powerful essay is one where we can get a sense of who you are on a really personal level. And again, if you can share a problem, it'll get personal really quickly. And it doesn't mean that your essay is a downer or that you're a complainer. But if you start with a problem, then you can go into how you dealt with it and turn it and show the upside and the positives. And those positives will actually have more meaning. This essay, this students, I have this great family, my home's great, everything's great, great, great. Well, good for you, and that is a wonderful thing, but it's not that interesting to read about. And it doesn't give me one sense of who this writer is as an individual student. I don't get how you think, what you're passionate about, what you do when things are hard and challenging. So how could you change that? So I looked through this and I saw one line. It said, for all this good stuff, it said, I know Donna can be on the news sometimes. I don't know Donna, and I'm going to make some assumptions just use it as an example, but my understanding is a lot of the communities are along the border, which have been in the news because there's issues with trafficking, immigration, a lot of problems. And I know you probably say, well, I don't want to talk about the problems. There's good stuff here too. Yes, there is. But there are problems, and this is a chance to use those problems to showcase your grit, your determination, how you are in succeeding in the face of problems. That's a lot more powerful than saying everything's great. It's really more powerful to say, hey, there's these problems, but I make them great despite the problems. Then it's more meaningful, it's more interesting. So my suggestion is, wow, Donna's on the news sometimes. Maybe start with something that went down in Donna, that was a scary time. Something happened to you. It got too close. And then you can go into how you felt and how you dealt with it. You didn't have to solve it. The problems could still very well be there going on, but how'd you deal with it? And then that really important stuff, remember half of your essay, the second half, what you learned about yourself, what you learned in dealing with that problem, how it changed you a little bit, how it formed your beliefs, how it shaped what you care about. That's how you're going to answer the second part of that prompt. Remember the prompt A, what was your environment, what's your background, but also how has it shaped you as a person? That should be half of your essay. If you have drafts right now, at some point, write it down like Angela said. Check to see if you included how it shaped you as a person. Some tips on doing that. What did you learn? Right? Did you change in any way? How did your background affect you? Shape what you believe in, what you care about? Did it change you at all? So that was just one suggestion. What I do, when I look through these, I look for, a lot of students will talk describing generally about things, and it's when they shift in and give a real example. They'll say, there's problems, blah, 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 and then they'll say, like the time, or for example, this thing happened. I look for those specific examples because those are what you can use, move them up to the top of your essay. Start with that specific time. That's how you write a really powerful personal essay. Start with that specific time as something that happened, and then you give the more general background. That's how you hook the reader. That's, instead of a grabber sentence or hook one sentence, you start with a little example of something that happened, a little story. Here's another one. This is one where the student talked, again, started pretty generally. It's very normal to start essays like this, to start at the beginning and write big, broad, general descriptions. You get your ideas out because it's hard to start. But what you do when you're writing and crafting an essay like this, then you go back and you see, can I pull up something more interesting to give it a focus and get it out of that general kind of bland talk. The environment in which I was raised could be defined as one of a kind, as everyone's is. My childhood atmosphere was an accumulation of Hispanic culture and its corresponding values, such as going to church on Sunday mornings. Experiences such as this have developed me into the individual I am today, how I perceive situations and act upon them, and my view toward the world. That's really good, but it's general. What I'm like is, okay, you say these experiences have developed you into the individual you are today. Well, how? Can you pick one experience, a specific experience? Start with that specific experience. Show me that, and then you can go in and talk generally about what you learned and how these types of experiences have shaped you. So this person went on, talked more about the household, and I keep reading, and then I get to this line. In the mornings back then, and what still to this day wakes me up, is the jingling sound of my father's keys, about 50 or so, the screech whistling of the water vaporing from the pot for his strong coffee, and his steel-toe work boots stomping on the floor, followed by his morning kiss on my forehead, as he would say the following to me before he'd leave for work. Pórtese bien, mija. La quiero mucho, me oyo. I'm not sure exactly what that means. I think it means behave yourself. I love you a lot. If you do, I love when students weave in snippets of dialogue using the Spanish language. It really, again, that's what it's like in your home. It's very rich detail. Use that. Those are wonderful. But you do need to translate it. So you could say, which in English means, for people like me that don't know exactly what that meant, which in English means, and then put it in English. But I just love this. And then it goes on. On the other hand, my mother would wake me up by turning off my ceiling fan, turning the light on, and uncovering me from my bed sheets. She knew I hated this, but it was the only way I could get out of bed rather than to just wake up. My mother would then say to me as I tried to cover myself with the bed sheets again, no, mijita, levántese, vámonos, que se nos acaba el día. I think it's like, get up, we've got to start the day. So the mom, what I see here is a specific example of what it's like to be in that student's world or background or environment, whatever you want to call it. Instead of just sort of describing it generally, my childhood atmosphere was an accumulation of Hispanic culture. It's a specific example. It's way more interesting. I would say start with this. Start with that moment. Share that moment, You could start it like every morning, I would wake up to the sound of the jingling of my father's keys, and then he says that thing to me. And then it could go into the mother. What I love here, I think, is the student is talking about the background, her family life, but she's got parents with two very different parenting styles. You know, the dad who's gentle and has this unconditional love, adoring, and then this mother's just like, get to it, get up, get going, you got stuff to do. It's demanding. How interesting. Those two people obviously have shaped you, and the writer, in two different ways. What a beautiful essay this could be about the background. So instead of just sort of describing generally, you have these two specific examples. And then you can go into what you learned from each of the parents about yourself, you know, and how it's inspired you and shaped you. Perfect. The student in the same essay then went on to talk about the food. Remember how the student started about talking about how it's the Hispanic culture, which is a great topic. If you want to write about culture for topic A, shaping you, this is a key, is to get specific. Instead of just saying Hispanic culture, you could pick food. Instead of food, pick one of these foods, you know. And this is interesting. This student went on to talk about how most of these foods involve meat, how her parents had a carniceria. That in itself could be a whole fascinating essay. So you could talk about maybe a time you went to the butcher place and how that affected you. Maybe you're a vegetarian, or maybe you your favorite thing in the world is to make certain meat dishes. Get specific. Share a story, a moment of something that happened, and then the background about growing up with your family. It's just this idea that you have so many things to write about. That's tricky. You have to trust that picking one specific thing is going to make a much more interesting essay. If you talk about the meat dishes, or one meat dish, maybe it's the barbecue. You could write an awesome essay about that, because you write about something that happened with the barbecue, and then what it represents, and then how it shaped you and your values and what you care about. Maybe it's a time that everybody's gathered at the barbecue, the weekly thing, and some details about what everybody eats and how there's laughter, but maybe there's bickering, and then go into how this ritual has shaped you somehow and what you care about. A couple more minutes. If anybody has any questions, you can let me know. Like, you could be thinking, wow, well, could I write about that weird topic? I'm happy to be a sounding board. If you think something's interesting, if it's interesting to you, it'll probably be an interesting topic. If it's weird, bizarre, unusual, all the better. The more specific, the better. If it's everyday and not impressive, it could be a great essay. Here's a student that wrote about a harder issue. The parents bickered all the time. Terrible home life because the parents just were at odds and violent even. That could be a great essay. Of course that's going to shape you if you have to deal with that all the time. You know, what you've learned. Maybe you had to end up kind of being the mom, you know, and taking care of your siblings and getting them up in the morning. So if you had something, this student talked, it wasn't always a good day where I came from. Every day I'd come upon problems, and then it went on, and then it was here that I thought, this is more specific. It was hard seeing the two you love at a young age fight every second of the day. The way there was shattered glass on the floor, torn up objects, and a house being destroyed. I would go to school and listen to the kids talk about their parents playing outside with them after school, when all I could think of was a way to better my home. It could be a great topic. If this is your background, write about it. One suggestion, instead of sort of starting generally, would be at the beginning. Talk about a moment. When I opened the front door, the first thing I saw was the lamp on the floor. Then I noticed the broken glass, right? All over the carpet. They were fighting again, my brother said. So some details, the house looked like a bomb went off. So right there, you start with that. That's called an anecdote. It's recreating a little moment so that we can see for a minute what it's like to be you. So if you've had an issue in your life, you can recreate at the beginning that little moment, and then you can go into the background. Look how you can pop it right on top. Let's read it. When I opened the front door, the first thing I saw was a lamp on the floor. Then I noticed the broken glass all over the carpet. The house looked like a bomb went off. They were fighting again, my brother said. It wasn't always a good day where I came from. Every day I would come upon problems in my household. See, now this is that background. Now you can describe the issue, and then you can go into what you learned. Here's more background. The dad's a veteran. The mom's single mom. This ended here, which it's missing. Now you need to do that most important half. What did I learn? Oops. Half. What did I learn from this background? That's what you need to make sure your essays have. The student did a great job of describing the chaos that was at home, but to give it meaning, what did I learn? How did it shape me? Change me? Affect me? Form my beliefs? So I hope that's helpful. So the big takeaway, two things, if you have drafts on any of your essays. One is the beginning interesting. How to make it interesting. Put a problem at the beginning. Have something happen specific. Two, read your essay. You can talk all about the issue or your talent, but is half of it talking about why it matters? Does half of it talk about what you've learned? So I hope that's helpful. I think our time's up.
Okay. Oh, wow, already?
I know.
Oh my goodness. Okay, that's amazing. Students, I hope it was helpful to you. I know every single time Janine goes through an essay and starts talking through a sample, I just learned so much more, and I hope you did the same. We will have one final cyber mentoring event this afternoon at 2:30, and teachers and students, if you are available to join us one last time for some more information, we'd love to see you again. So we're going to go ahead and end this session. Good luck to you, students. And
Good luck.
okay, bye-bye, everybody.